Hello and welcome to It's Your Business with Mario Toneguzzi on Megapix Media. Joining me today is Calgary business and community leader Jim Gray, who has been a very recognizable face and name in the oil patch for many years. Thanks for joining us today, Jim.
Well, glad to be here.
Okay, first thing I got to ask you, Jim. I was just looking up at your biography, right? And obviously, you're a co-founder of Canadian Hunter Exploration. You're now with Brookfield Asset Management. You have an order, Alberta Order of Excellence, and in the Canadian Petroleum Hall of Fame. But you know who really jumped out at me was 1956. A young kid from Kirkland Lake, Ontario, moved to Calgary to work in the oil patch. Can you tell me just why you made the move from Ontario to Calgary back then?
Well, as you know, Leduc and the other big discoveries, the reef discoveries, SO, that all happened in the late 1940s. And Calgary was booming. And I was at school, and there was a company called Great Plains Development. It's now long gone, but they interviewed a bunch of us and they offered me a job. I can remember, Mario, my first paycheck when I was paid, it was about $320 a month. And that was, so I got started, but I worked as a summer student for 2 summers before I started permanently.
Okay, so you've seen the ups and downs of the Calgary economy over the years. The current spell that we're in, is this the worst that you've ever seen it?
Um, in terms of the damage on an instant basis, the National Energy Program in 1980 was sort of it wrought the same damage. The difference to this one is how long it's lasted. The NEP in October of 1980, it only lasted a year or two or three, and then prices took off again. And then in 1986, there was a collapse of oil price. But the difference this time is more fundamental, and it's the length it's lasted is the unique aspect of it, and the great damage that it's wrought.
Yeah, let's take us back in time, Jim, to October 28th, 1980. Celebrate is a bad word to use, I guess, but the 40th anniversary of that date is coming up on Wednesday. What do you remember about that time, and specifically about that day, and what happened?
Well, as you know, it was part of a budget that came down, and Alan McEachran, I think, was the one to bring it down. We'd been given some indication that there was going to be a move on the industry. There was a speech down in the Maritimes, actually, but none of us were expecting the damage and the depth to which the incursion in our industry was. And the unique part about the NEP was that the reaction was instantaneous. Even the same day, there were people canceled contracts, canceled obligations, pulled out of Canada. We estimated that there was about $2 billion worth of investment that was over the next month or two was redirected into the United States. So the reaction was visceral and it was instantaneous.
Yeah, and when you fast forward to today, Jim, where do you see see things going for the oil patch here in the next little while?
Well, of course, the great change in the energy business in the last decade or so has been horizontal drilling and multi-stage fracking. That changed the foundations of our industry. And we watched the United States go very rapidly, really, from being one of the world's greatest importers to be the largest producer in the world. And that all, the technology started to emerge in the 1980s It got refined in the 1990s, and it really took off in about 2005, 2010. And so technology, and then it's been refined ever since. The fracking, the fluids, the drilling, the horizontal aspect, all those elements are high technology, and they've been refined ever since. So we're now gradually watching the horizontal technology spread throughout the world. Of course, its home was the United States and to a degree Canada, but now it's starting to be used in Argentina and in Asia, in the Middle East. It's starting to be used throughout the world, and that's had a profound effect on our industry.
What are your thoughts about the future of the oil patch? Do you think it's I think we will recover from this?
Well, the plain answer is no. I think that we're in for a period of substantial change. I mean, the world consumed, before the virus and before the energy wars between Saudi Arabia and Russia, we were consuming about 100 million barrels of oil a day. I haven't checked the numbers in the last few weeks or so, but it's gone down dramatically. Now it will recover some of that ground because of consumption in the emerging economies, India, some of the others, because oil is really a magical fuel. And so it's not going to come to an end overnight, of course.
Yeah.
It's going to be here for a long, long time. Will it be at 100 million barrels? No. Maybe it'll be 95, maybe it'll be 90, but that's a lot of oil. That's every day 100 million barrels of oil. And so it's got a future. It's linked very tightly to the environment. It's linked very tightly to technology. We've got to fight extra hard because our legacy is disproportionately heavy oil and the oil sands. But the technology that has been wonderful in terms of water, the environment, air, land reclamation, etc. I think Canada is simply one of the leading countries in the world because we have to be, because
Yeah.
that's our legacy.
Yeah. Now, obviously, yesterday in Calgary, well, it was a huge news with Cenovus, buying out Husky Energy. First of all, Jim, were you surprised by that? And then just what do you think the overall impact of that means?
Well, number one, you got to remember, my next big station in life is 90 years of age. So I'm not quite as engaged as I used to be, of course, but people have to get their costs down. I mean, we're not going back to the good old days of higher price. We've got to become more efficient. We've got to get our costs down. And I think that's fundamentally what drove Cenovus and Husky
Yeah.
to the deal. And I think there'll be more of them. I don't because the cost structure has to be controlled,
Mm.
and it will be, and there'll be more technology that'll refine costs. But if we're going to be competitive, and we must be competitive, we've got to reduce our costs.
As you walk around downtown Calgary these days, Jim, what's the sense and the mood you get from downtown?
Oh, there's 30% of these buildings are empty. The Innova building, I read the other day, has 0 people in it, that great big building. So the mood can't be buoyant. But on the other hand, we're resilient, we're committed, we're determined. And so, and we've been through crises before. Big sign behind me on my desk is that crises are opportunities. And this is, of course, an enormous crisis. And I'm convinced, Mario, we'll come out of this stronger in terms of our environmental work, in terms of our costs, in terms of the integrity of our province and our city, I think we'll come out of it stronger. But it's going to be painful. We have been fundamentally living beyond our means for quite a long time. And when you start to discipline, when you start to put in, when you really start to look at the nickels and dimes, not just the big numbers, but you really look at your costs, it's not fun. It's not fun, but we're going to do it, and that's well underway.
Yeah. When I remember a few years ago, Jim, that you were a video clip of yourself talking about the recession, and you were talking about how sometimes recessions are good for companies because it forces them to look at their cost structure, as you've just been talking about, or look at efficiencies, et cetera. Do you think that's the biggest lesson to be learned through recessions?
I really do. And I'm always reminded that when they try to immunize you against a disease, they give you the disease, and
Yeah.
and then you develop antibodies and you develop resistance, and that prevents you getting the worst part of that disease. Well, that goes for business too. Sometimes you need you need a crisis, you need a shock, but you mustn't give in. You mustn't. You have to roll up your sleeves and you have to figure how we can do things better. And there's always ways to do things better. And there will be some companies that won't make it, but that's historically always been the case. And so I'm convinced that the strong companies will get even stronger, and there'll be many Canadian companies. Look at Cenovus, look at Suncor. I mean, we've got some wonderful Canadian companies, and
Mhm.
they'll come out of this stronger than they went into it. I'm absolutely convinced of that. Now, not that it won't be painful, not that there won't be some drama associated with it, and maybe even some political implications, but we will come out of this and we will be stronger than we went in.
Okay, super. Well, thanks a lot for joining us today, Jim.
Well, thank you, Mario. Appreciate it.
Okay, that was Jim Gray, an iconic Calgary community and business leader in the oil patch for many years. This has been It's Your Business with Mario Toneguzzi on Megapix Media. Thanks for joining us today.